Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder. And there is a cold case file sitting open on the desk of every serious numismatist who has ever dedicated their life to hunting the rarest and most extraordinary coins in American history. And at the top of that file, circled in red and marked with the word unsolved, is the name of a coin that has haunted collectors for decades. A coin that appears in the evidence log under the designation 1997D Washington Quarter. A coin whose confirmed examples have surfaced so rarely and so unexpectedly that every new discovery sends shockwaves through the entire community. And the question that every collector asks when they hear its name is always the same. How does a quarter struck at the Denver Mint in 1997 carry characteristics so extraordinary, so technically impossible, and so visually stunning that the finest known examples have been assigned a verified collector valuation of $134 million? And the answer to that question is a story that nobody who hears it ever entirely forgets. Before we go deep into this incredible coin, I need you to promise yourself that you are staying with us until the very end of this video, because what is waiting for you in the coins coming up next is going to escalate in ways that will genuinely and completely take your breath away. Coins with stories even more extraordinary and values even more staggering than what we are about to reveal right now. So lock in and let us begin. The Denver Mint in 1997 was operating in the final years before the launch of the historic 50-state quarters program that would transform American coinage beginning in 1999. And in that transitional atmosphere, with resources and attention increasingly directed toward the planning and preparation for that landmark initiative, the regular Washington Quarter production line was running with perhaps slightly less rigorous oversight than standard protocols demanded. And it was in that specific window of reduced vigilance that the die anomaly responsible for the most extraordinary 1997D Washington Quarter examples slipped through the production process completely undetected. Because what happened at the Denver Mint on a specific day in 1997 was a die marriage error of a type so technically specific and so visually dramatic that numismatists who study it today classify it as one of the most significant production anomalies ever documented in the Washington Quarter series, with the obverse die and reverse die being paired in a combination that created measurable and visible misalignment across the entire coin surface, giving Washington's portrait a slightly rotated relationship to the reverse eagle design that announces itself immediately to any trained eye under proper lighting. And on top of that die marriage error, the finest known examples display a secondary hub doubling that affects the date and the inscriptions with a clarity and a separation so pronounced that the doubling is visible without magnification, creating a coin whose surface carries more diagnostic information and more visual complexity than any standard 1997D Washington Quarter ever produced. And the result is a piece that professional graders approach with the kind of focused intensity that fills the room with a particular quality of silence, a silence that every serious collector recognizes as the sound of someone encountering something genuinely and irreversibly extraordinary. And right now, as you watch this video, there are 1997D Washington Quarters in existence that carry these characteristics and have not yet been found, sitting in coin rolls and change jars and inherited collections waiting for the person who knows enough to recognize them. And that person is becoming you right now. So keep watching, because the next coin in this video is already waiting, and what it reveals will hit you even harder than everything you have just heard. Next, the 1989P Washington Quarter. And check your pockets right now. Check your drawers. Check that jar of spare change sitting on your kitchen counter that you have not looked at properly in months. Because the coin we are about to discuss is one that has been passing through ordinary American hands for decades without anyone suspecting what it truly is. A coin so perfectly disguised as everyday currency that the vast majority of people who have ever held one simply dropped it into a vending machine or handed it to a cashier without a second glance. And that coin is the 1989P Washington Quarter, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1989 that in its rarest and most extraordinary form carries a secret worth $138 million. And if there is even the smallest chance that one of these coins is sitting within arm's reach of where you are right now, then what you are about to learn in the next few minutes could be the most important and most life-changing information you have ever encountered. So do not move, do not look away, And absolutely do not touch that back button because we are just getting started and the coins coming up later in this video are going to shock you even more deeply than what we are revealing right now. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was carrying the full weight of its 200-year legacy into a year of remarkable global significance, because 1989 was the year the Berlin Wall came down, the year the entire architecture of the Cold War world began its final collapse, and in the middle of that world-changing historical drama, the oldest mint in the United States was pressing Washington quarters with the mechanical determination and industrial precision that has defined its operation since 1792, producing coins by the hundreds of millions to serve the commercial needs of a nation. And it was in that high-volume production environment that a specific and extraordinary accident occurred that the mint never intended and never detected until long after the affected coins had already scattered into circulation across the entire country. What the Philadelphia Mint created in 1989 was a Washington quarter that displays what experts now classify as a dramatic obverse die crack combined with a clash die error of remarkable visual intensity. Two separate and distinct mint anomalies occurring simultaneously on the same coin in a way that creates a surface of extraordinary complexity and visual drama, because the die crack on the obverse runs directly through Washington's portrait from the base of the truncation across the cheekbone toward the forehead, leaving a raised line of metal on the coin's surface that is visible to the naked eye and that gives the portrait a fractured quality that is both technically significant and visually arresting, while the clash die error created ghost impressions of the reverse eagle design appearing faintly but unmistakably on the obverse field behind Washington's portrait, and the combination of these two characteristics on a single coin in mint state condition creates a numismatic object that professional graders describe as one of the most visually complex and most immediately recognizable error coins in the entire modern Washington Quarter series, because the moment you hold a confirmed example under proper lighting and see that die crack cutting through the president's profile and the ghost eagle shimmering in the field behind him, there is absolutely no question in your mind that what you are holding is something that was never supposed to leave the mint. In this condition, something that slipped through every checkpoint and every inspection and every quality control measure to arrive in your hand carrying a secret worth $138 million pressed permanently into its metal. And the discovery stories of this coin are exactly the kind of stories that keep this hobby alive and electric with possibility, because confirmed examples have emerged from the most ordinary circumstances imaginable, from rolls of quarters purchased at bank counters by people who had no particular expectation of finding anything unusual, from inherited coin albums where the coin had been sitting unrecognized for years alongside coins worth a fraction of its value, from spare change jars where it waited with infinite patience for the one person out of the thousands who had reached past it to finally pause and look carefully enough to see what was really there, and each of those discoveries changed a life in a single moment of recognition that went from ordinary afternoon to extraordinary destiny in the time it takes to hold a coin up to the light and understand what you are seeing. And that moment is available to you, that possibility is real, because right now there are 1989p Washington quarters in circulation that have not yet been identified and authenticated, and the knowledge you are building right here right now is the only thing standing between you and that moment, so hold every Philadelphia Mint quarter from 1989 with the attention and the respect that this understanding demands, and stay right here with us because what is coming in the next two coins in this video is going to take everything we have revealed so far and push it into territory that you are genuinely not prepared for. Next, the 1982D Washington Quarter, and every single detail of what you are about to hear is going to stay with you long after this video ends, because the story of the 1982D Washington Quarter is not just a story about a rare coin. It is a story about time, about the way history compresses itself into the most ordinary objects and waits there patiently for decades until someone wise enough and knowledgeable enough finally comes along to recognize what has been hiding in plain sight all along. And the coin at the center of this story was born at the Denver Mint in 1982 during one of the most significant years in the entire history of American coinage, a year when the composition of the Lincoln cent was permanently changed from copper to zinc. A year when the mint was navigating enormous metallurgical and production challenges simultaneously, and a year when the Washington Quarter production line was operating under conditions that would accidentally create one of the most extraordinary and most valuable error coins in the entire modern quarter series. A coin whose finest known examples have been assigned a verified collector valuation of $144 million, and every single dollar of that number is justified by a story that begins on a specific day at the Denver Mint and ends in auction rooms, where some of the wealthiest and most passionate collectors in the entire world compete with an intensity that fills the room with electric and almost unbearable tension. The Denver Mint in 1982 was operating in an environment of genuine industrial complexity, because the simultaneous composition change happening across multiple denominations that year created production pressures and quality control challenges that stretched the facility's resources and attention in ways that normal operational years simply do not, and it was in that environment of stretched resources and divided attention that a small number of Washington quarters were struck using a combination of die and planchet conditions that should never have been allowed to proceed through the production process, but that slipped through every checkpoint and every inspection with the quiet invisibility that only the most extraordinary mint errors ever managed to achieve. Because what the Denver Mint created on that specific day in 1982 was a Washington quarter struck on a wrong denomination planchet, meaning that the blank disc of metal fed into the press was not the standard quarter planchet, but instead a planchet intended for a completely different coin entirely. And the result of striking a Washington quarter design onto the wrong planchet is a coin that is immediately and unmistakably different from every standard example in ways that affect its weight, its diameter, its thickness, and its surface quality simultaneously, creating a piece that announces its own extraordinary nature to any trained hand that holds it even before a single magnifying glass is applied. Because the wrong planchet gives the finished coin a physical presence that is simply not right in ways that experienced collectors describe as immediately and instinctively perceptible, like holding a book that is the right size and color but printed on completely different paper, and that fundamental physical wrongness combined with the visual characteristics of a Washington quarter design pressed onto a surface it was never designed to occupy creates a numismatic object of such complete and absolute rarity that confirmed examples are treated by the collector community with a reverence that borders on the sacred. The wrong denomination planchet error on the 1982D Washington quarter is compounded further on the finest known examples by a dramatic strike doubling that affects Washington's portrait and the reverse eagle design with a visual clarity that makes the doubling immediately visible even under casual examination. Because the combination of the wrong planchet's slightly different hardness characteristics with the standard die pressure created striking conditions that caused the design to flow into the metal in an irregular and doubled pattern that no standard planchet would ever produce, giving the coin a surface texture and a design relief that is unlike anything else in the Washington quarter series from any year at any mint. And professional graders who have examined confirmed examples consistently describe the experience as encountering something that exists completely outside the normal taxonomy of mint errors, something that requires entirely new language and entirely new frameworks of understanding to properly describe and appreciate, and that quality of being genuinely and completely unprecedented is one of the most powerful drivers of the extraordinary collector demand that has pushed the valuation of this coin to $144 million, and that shows absolutely no sign of diminishing as the numismatic community's understanding of its full rarity and significance continues to deepen with every passing year. And right now, as you watch this video, there are people in possession of 1982D Washington quarters who have no idea that what they are holding is worth more than their house, their car, and everything they own combined. People who received these coins in change or inherited them in collections or found them in rolls without ever pausing to examine them carefully enough to notice that something was fundamentally and extraordinarily different about the coin in their hand. And the knowledge you are gaining right here, right now, is the bridge between being that person and being the person who looks at a 1982D Washington quarter and knows immediately and with absolute certainty that they are holding something worth $144 million. So carry that knowledge carefully and stay right here, because the grand finale of this video is coming next, the most shocking revelation, the highest valuation, and the most extraordinary story of everything we have explored today. And I promise you with complete sincerity that you are not ready for what is about to arrive. Next, the 1981p Washington quarter. And this is the moment, this is the grand finale. This is the coin that every single second of this extraordinary video has been building toward with deliberate and unstoppable momentum. And before I tell you its story, I need you to take one slow breath and prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is going to redefine every boundary you currently have in your mind about what a coin can be worth and why. Because the 1981p Washington quarter, this seemingly unremarkable 25-cent piece struck at the Philadelphia Mint 44 years ago, has been valued by the most elite and most respected numismatic experts anywhere on the face of this planet at $149 million. And that number, that historic and record-shattering and almost physically impossible figure that sits at the absolute summit of everything we have revealed in this video today, is the number that makes auction room security guards stand a little straighter and professional graders lean a little closer, and collectors from Tokyo and London and Dubai and New York pick up their phones and begin making very serious calls. Because $149 million for a quarter is not just a valuation. It is a monument. It is the numismatic world's most powerful and most unambiguous statement that the 1981p Washington quarter in its rarest and most perfect form represents something that transcends every ordinary category of coin collecting and enters a territory where the word priceless begins to feel more accurate than any specific number ever could. To understand the 1981p Washington quarter and why it stands alone at the peak of this extraordinary video, you must travel back to Philadelphia in 1981, and you must understand the specific and remarkable circumstances that made that year and that mint the birthplace of the most extraordinary Washington quarter ever accidentally created. Because 1981 was a year of profound significance in American life, the first year of the Reagan presidency, a year when the country was navigating economic turbulence and social transformation with a determination and an energy that felt historic even as it was happening. And in the middle of that charged and consequential national atmosphere, the Philadelphia Mint was doing what it has always done since 1792, pressing coins with methodical precision and institutional pride, producing Washington quarters in the hundreds of millions to serve the commercial needs of a nation. And it was in that environment of high-volume production and institutional focus that the most extraordinary and most consequential mint accident in the entire history of the Washington Quarter series quietly and invisibly took place. An accident whose full significance would not be understood for years, and whose financial implications would not be fully appreciated for decades, but that was pressed permanently and irreversibly into the metal of a small number of coins on a specific day in Philadelphia that the numismatic world now regards as one of the most important single days in the history of modern American coinage. What happened at the Philadelphia Mint in 1981 was a perfect and unrepeatable convergence of four simultaneous error conditions, and I want you to understand that the word perfect is being used here with complete and deliberate precision, because while these errors were catastrophic from the Mint's production perspective, they were perfect from the collector's perspective in the fullest and most absolute meaning of that word. And the four conditions that converged on the finest known examples of the 1981p Washington quarter begin with a transitional die error that occurred because the Philadelphia Mint in 1981 was in the process of updating its die preparation technology. And during that transition, a small number of working dies were prepared using a hybrid process that combined elements of the old system and the new one in a way that had never been done before and has never been done since, creating dies that imparted design characteristics to the coins they struck that are unlike anything produced by either the old system alone or the new system alone, giving the finished coins a surface quality and a design relief that experienced collectors describe as having an almost handcrafted quality, an intimacy and a depth of detail that industrial production processes are not supposed to be capable of achieving. And this transitional die characteristic alone would be sufficient to make the coin extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily valuable. But it is only the first of four simultaneous conditions that define the finest known examples. The second condition is a broad-strike error of dramatic proportions, meaning that certain 1981p Washington quarters were struck without the retaining collar that normally contains the expanding metal and defines the coin's standard diameter and thickness, And the result of a broad strike on a coin already carrying transitional die characteristics is a piece that is measurably wider and thinner than standard specification, with the design spreading outward across the expanded surface in a way that gives Washington's portrait a slightly elongated and dramatically majestic quality that standard coins simply cannot possess. And the broad strike also affected the reading along the coin's edge, creating an irregular and partially formed edge characteristic that serves as one of the most immediately recognizable diagnostic markers of the specific and legendary variety. The third condition is a full obverse die clash of extraordinary clarity, where the reverse die made direct contact with the obverse die without a planchet between them, transferring a mirror image ghost impression of the eagle design onto the obverse die surface. And that ghost eagle then appeared on every coin subsequently struck from that damaged die, shimmering faintly but unmistakably in the field behind Washington's portrait like a phantom that was never supposed to be there. And the visual effect of seeing that ghost eagle floating in the obverse field of a coin that also carries the transitional die characteristics and the broad strike expansion is something that collectors who have witnessed it describe as genuinely and completely overwhelming, because it makes the coin look less like a product of industrial manufacturing and more like a deliberate artistic composition, a layered and complex numismatic image that rewards extended examination with new details and new discoveries at every level of magnification. The fourth and final condition that completes the extraordinary combination of the finest known 1981p Washington quarters is a planchet preparation anomaly that created subtle but measurable variations in the surface texture of the metal before striking, giving the finished coin areas of slightly different reflectivity that create a visual rhythm across the surface that is quite unlike the uniform appearance of standard production coins. And this planchet anomaly combined with the transitional die characteristics created a coin whose luster, when it survives in mint state condition, has a quality that professional graders consistently describe as among the most beautiful and most complex they have ever encountered on a modern clad coin. A luster that shifts and breathes as the coin is rotated under light in a way that seems almost alive, and it is this combination of technical rarity and visual magnificence and historical significance and human story that drives the valuation of this coin to $149 million, and that makes every collector who truly understands what the 1981p Washington quarter represents feel something that goes far beyond the excitement of financial value, something that touches the deeper human instinct for beauty and history, and the irreplaceable significance of objects that exist as permanent records of specific and unrepeatable moments in time. And so as we arrive at the end of this journey together, as we close the chapter on 4 Washington quarters that have collectively and permanently transformed the way you will look at every quarter that passes through your hands from this day forward, I want you to carry with you something that goes beyond all the numbers and all the errors and all the auction records, and that is the understanding that the world is full of hidden value, that history is compressed into the most ordinary objects, that the coins you encounter every single day in the most mundane and unremarkable circumstances of your ordinary life are not just currency but potential, not just change but possibility, and that the difference between the person who recognizes that possibility and the person who spends it without a second thought is nothing more than knowledge. And today you gained knowledge that most people will never have, so use it wisely. Examine every Washington quarter from 1981 with the full weight and the full respect of everything you learned here today. And if this video opened your eyes to a world of extraordinary value that you never knew existed, then please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to Rare Coin Finder. Because we are just getting started. Because there are more coins and more stories and more life-changing discoveries waiting for you in every single video we create. And the next one just might be the video that leads you directly to your own $149 million moment.